Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me as we take a look at your forecast for January 29th through February 2nd. And things are looking relatively quiet this week after our storm wraps up this morning, or really has wrapped up already, and things will be improving rapidly out there driving wise. So, yeah, things are doing better. Let's take a look at what's going on across the country. You can see here's our departing storm, just some leftover clouds from that. We'll look at radar. We've got a few leftover flurries, but mostly finishing up. Across the central part of the country, we have really a lot of high pressure kind of dominating. Not much going on. A little bit of a front, Arctic front, or not really an Arctic front here, but kind of a wave along kind of the Arctic boundary, which is to our north across Quebec currently heading in. You can see that we have another storm kind of approaching the west coast, but a big ridge across the central part of the country. We are kind of on the west side of the trough. So if you have a trough that dips, essentially the trough is going to kind of dip down and up like this. And when you're closer to the west side of the trough, that's a quiet weather spot. It's the east side of the trough is where all the weather really happens. So that is sort of the pattern for the week. That will keep us quiet. This little system here will affect us maybe with a few clouds on tomorrow, but essentially nothing else. And then really no chance of precipitation this week. Friday, we may have some flurries, but yeah, that's really it. Okay, taking a look at radar close to home, you can see rapidly we're losing what little is left of flurries across southern Vermont. There may still be a few flurries that aren't showing up real well on radar, but basically we are done. We're certainly done with all accumulating snow here, and really that's true. Even this is not actually that heavy as the storm continues to depart relatively quickly across the Atlantic, and that will leave us with just the fresh snow that we got, which came in about normal. I had about 4 inches of snow at my house, 4 to 5 inches of snow at my house, which is about right where we were kind of thinking the storm did pan out basically the way that we thought it would, which, hey, once in a while that works out. Let's take a look at wider radar. You can see, wow, there is really nothing going on except for rain that's approaching the Pacific Northwest. A little bit of mixed precipitation associated with this weak system that is rapidly losing all moisture. So by the time this gets here, there will be, I'm not sure any of this is actually hitting the ground, but anything that is hitting the ground now will not be hitting the ground when it approaches tomorrow. So I wouldn't even expect a flurry or anything like that out of this system as opposed to just a few clouds, and it'll be kind of partly cloudy as well. We will see more sun this week than we've seen in a while, which will be nice, and a good overall week for skiing. And conditions are pretty good, especially with a little bit of a chance today with a little bit of fresh snow. Not anything amazing, but and they'll be able to make some snow. It won't be overly cold this week, but it will be cold enough, especially at night, to make snow. So that'll allow for the kind of continued improvement of the trails as we get going through the week. If we take a wider look at the kind of surface map, you can see basically high pressure dominating everywhere. Pay no attention to this little tiny, this low here. It's not really a thing. Here's that front and a wave of low pressure along it that could bring us a few clouds tomorrow. There is some cold Arctic air to our north. We won't really tap that. This storm never really attached itself to that Arctic air. That's one of the reasons that we didn't get a big storm out of this. But there is some Arctic air to our north, and there is a decent amount of Arctic air also across Alaska. So whether that makes a run at us, doesn't look likely in the next couple of weeks, but it's up there. So that always means that there's definitely a possibility for that. Whenever you see that deep cold building, it does mean that we have at least a chance of it. We may not get it. It also kind of increases storm chances. So we're sort of at the moment kind of quieting down for at least a week. Maybe next week doesn't look overly busy either at this time, although it's a little too far out to tell. But that happens. We kind of go through stormier periods and then less stormy periods. We're definitely in a less stormy period for the next couple of weeks, relatively quiet with kind of seasonable temperatures. So yeah, kind of just a ho-hum weather pattern, which is okay. We don't need it to always be active and crazy and busy. So here's your temperatures. So here you go. We do have some cold air across Quebec. Again, this is not, it's cold. It's cold. 45 below zero is very cold. But overnight lows, this is not incredible or anything earth-shattering, record-breaking across this part of Canada. It's cold up there oftentimes. The same thing in Alaska. Very cold, 50 below zero. Yeah, that's cold no matter what. They had 60 below in a couple spots a couple days ago. So yeah, interior Alaska, though, it's cold this time of year. What are you going to do? But you can see, especially this ridge across the central part of North America here, pushes well up into Canada. And so that's, even though we're kind of sliding and from the northwest, our flow will generally be from the northwest over the next few days. You can see to our northwest, we're relatively warm. And basically that's air that's moved up into this Arctic air, but it's Pacific air that gets cooled off across the continent and then heads in our direction. So hence the seasonable temperatures, with really the kind of midwinter cold or deep cold just to our north. We're not going to really tap this, but there's no trigger to tap it. And the cold over Alaska, we'll just have to see kind of where it moves to as it eventually inevitably will. But for now, most of our weather is kind of the seasonable temperatures here, which is pretty. We're not going to complain about that. So, what does that actually look like in terms of the forecast over the week? Basically, low 30s for most of our temperatures, about freezing today. After starting out in the upper 20s tomorrow. A little colder overnight tonight. We will get a little bit of that fresh snow cover, low teens. Could be some temperatures down around 10 degrees in the valleys, the colder valleys tonight. So it'll feel pretty chilly tomorrow morning, but then we recover up to the mid 30s with some mix of sun and clouds, more clouds than sun, but a little bit of sun tomorrow. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, pretty good amount of sun. Friday, maybe a little bit less, with a chance of a few flurries with the approach system that does approach us, which will also bring us some cool air behind it. We might get a little cooler for the weekend, although again, not Arctic cold, but a little colder behind this system. Temperatures overnight kind of gradually warming up, mid 30s, and some places, some of the valley locations might push towards 40 on Thursday. So really not a season. When I say seasonably chilly, that's really the first half of the week. This is actually a little above average. Really, we should be below freezing, even in the valley locations most days this time of year. So, but not too far. This is pretty close to what you'd expect. So the mountains is really good for skiing, in terms of comfort level, a lot of sun, decent amount of sun. Temperatures at the mountains in the mid 20s for a lot of the week, even if you start off early in the morning, early in the upper teens. So yeah, nice skiing weather. Cold enough at night that they can make some snow. The skiing conditions should continue to improve as we head through this week, as we look towards February. Hopefully, looking for a good month of skiing in February. Yeah, so that's what's going on there. Also, Friday, International Meteorology Day. Right now, I'm just kidding. Groundhog's Day, which in many ways leads us to the rodent that tells us the future. No, not quite, but is the best meteorology movie, I think. Groundhog's Day. With Bill Murray, really the only there is really no competition for that in terms of a meteorology movie. So there you go. That's what's. Let's go to the highlights quickly before we head on. No significant weather for this week. Temperatures will be seasonable to a tick above average this week. The only chance for precip after leftover flurries this morning is a flurry on Friday, and again, that won't really be any impact. The pattern remains storm-free going forward after this week as well. There's nothing really in the offering at the moment that looks overly impactful. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see on some of that. The further out we get, skiing should be good all week. All right. Want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. They help support what I do here at the West River Weather Guy. I really appreciate them, especially my new patrons over the last few days. They've been a big, it's always nice to get a couple of new ones as the storms come in. I appreciate them. And I will be back on Friday. Look at your work week forecast. If you want a Wednesday forecast, my patrons get a Wednesday forecast. So that's one of the things they do get. I do a weekend forecast on Wednesday for them. And for some of them who are weather insiders, I do a 10-day forecast then as well. So there you go. Otherwise, thanks for joining me. I'll be back on Friday.